The flight to Egypt. More than 2,000 years ago, in the arid lands of Judea, under the starry sky of the Middle East, God wove one of the most poignant stories of divine protection and providence. This is the story of how the creator of the universe protected his own son from the wrath of a tyrannical king. A journey of faith, obedience, and silent miracles that would forever change the destiny of humanity. Night had fallen in Bethlehem. The stars shone brightly in that unpolluted sky, like diamonds scattered on black velvet. The desert air, which during the day burned the skin of travelers, now brought a cold breeze that penetrated through the cracks of the stone and mud houses. In the humble dwelling where Joseph had found refuge for his family, Mary gently cradled the baby Jesus. The dim light of an oil lamp danced on the whitewashed walls, casting long shadows. The smell of fresh straw mixed with the scent of wood resin. The silence was broken only by the distant murmur of sheep in the nearby fields and the occasional crackle of the lamp. Jesus slept peacefully, wrapped in simple linen cloths, his small hands closed, his serene face reflecting a peace that contrasted with the storm that was brewing a few miles away. In Jerusalem, inside Herod's imposing palace, built of monumental white limestone that glistened in the moonlight, the king walked restlessly through his luxurious chambers. The walls, decorated with frescoes and colorful mosaics imported from Rome, seemed to suffocate him. Persian carpets covered the polished marble floor, but their heavy footsteps echoed like thunder in the vastness of the corridors. Herod the Great, as he liked to be called, was a man consumed by paranoia. His face marked by the deep wrinkles of age and cruelty bore eyes that no longer knew peace. He had already ordered the murder of his own wife and 2 of his children on suspicion of treason. And now those strangers, those wise men from the East, had come to ask for a newborn baby who would be the king of the Jews. The news pierced his heart like a sharp blade. Another king? On their lands? Built on blood, politics, and submission to Rome? Never. His wrinkled hand clenched into a fist. His advisors watched in silence, well aware of the signs of fury that preceded his most terrible decisions. But when darkness took hold of Herod's heart, God's light moved in favor of his son. That same night, when sleep finally overcame Joseph, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream. It was not a nebulous or confused vision, but clear and urgent as a call to war. The angelic presence radiated a light that seemed to come from within, a luminosity that did not hurt the eyes, but warmed the soul. His voice was firm, without hesitation. "Get up, take the child and his mother, flee to Egypt and stay there until I warn you. For Herod will seek the child to kill him." Joseph woke up with a start, his heart beating fast in his chest. Drops of cold sweat ran down his forehead. There was no time for doubts or questions. The divine message left no room for doubt. I knew the stories about Herod. I knew his legendary cruelty. If the angel of the Lord had warned, the danger was real and imminent. With precise but silent movements, Jose got up. His callous carpenter's hands, accustomed to molding wood and building, were now trembling slightly as he lit another lamp. The dim light revealed to Mary, who had already awakened with the movement, her large dark eyes meeting Joseph's in silent understanding. "We have to go." "Now," Joseph whispered, his hoarse voice conveying the urgency of the divine message. Maria asked no questions. There was no time for words. He hugged Jesus tighter to his chest, feeling the warmth of his little body, the gentle beating of his heart. His nimble fingers quickly wrapped the boy in more layers of cloth, protecting him from the cold of the desert night. Joseph gathered his few belongings, a leather skin for water, some barley bread, dried dates, a thick woolen cloak to protect him from the cold of the night, the basic tools of his trade. His hands moved with controlled speed, each object chosen by weight and need. They couldn't carry much. The journey would be long and difficult. The donkey they had used on the journey from Nazareth to Bethlehem was quickly prepared. The animal, accustomed to a simple life and hard work, remained calm while Joseph adjusted the saddlebags on his back. The leather of the reins wore from use, but remained firm. Under the cover of darkness, with only the stars as witnesses, the little family left Bethlehem. The narrow streets of the city, built of irregular stones, were deserted. The mud and limestone houses, stacked on top of each other on the hillsides, were silent. Stray dogs rummaged through the remains of food, but even they didn't care about the 3 travelers who disappeared into the night. Joseph led the donkey along the rocky paths that descended from the Judean hills. Every step was measured careful. The path was covered with loose stones that could cause a fatal fall. To the left, sheer cliffs plunged into deep chasms. To the right, rock formations stood like silent sentinels against the starry sky. Mary hugged Jesus tightly, her body absorbing every jolt, every sudden movement of the animal. Her hands, small but strong, molded to the boy's body like a living shield. She murmured prayers in Hebrew, ancient words of supplication and trust that had been whispered by generations of mothers in Israel. The cold of the night in the desert was biting. The temperature, which during the day easily exceeded 40 degrees, now plummeted to almost 0. The moisture in the air was virtually non-existent, causing every breath to burn in the throat. The wind howled through the rocks, dragging fine sand into the eyes and sticking to the skin. But Joseph did not stop. Their eyes, accustomed to darkness, followed the traces that trade caravans had used for centuries. Her worn leather sandals touched the ground with confidence. He knew the stories of the patriarchs. He knew that he was not the first son of Israel to seek refuge in Egypt. Jacob's son Joseph had been sold into Egypt, and there he had become powerful. And Moses himself also fled to Midian before returning to deliver his people. Now Joseph's son followed in the footsteps of his people's history. As we descended into the valley, the vegetation changed. The twisted olive trees and fig trees of the Judean hills gave way to thorny shrubs and isolated acacia trees. The soil became sandier, more unstable. With each step, the donkey sank slightly, making the walk more strenuous. When the first light of dawn began to tint the horizon with shades of pink and orange, Joseph finally allowed them to stop. They found refuge in a rock formation that formed a natural cave. The stone walls still withstood the cold of the night, but offered protection from the sun that would soon punish the desert. Maria got off the donkey, her legs numb from the effort of holding the position for hours. He sat down on a smooth stone, gently pushed the cloths from Jesus' face, and he opened his eyes for the first time since his departure. He did not cry. He only looked at his mother with those deep eyes that seemed to hold eternal mysteries. Joseph gave water to Mary, then to the animal, and finally he drank it himself. The precious liquid was rationed with extreme care. The journey to Egypt would take days, perhaps weeks, and there was no guarantee that they would find wells along the way. While Mary fed Jesus, Joseph watched the entrance to the cave, his gaze scanning the horizon. The landscape was empty, silent, only the heat began to ripple in the air like invisible water. But he knew that security was a fragile illusion. Herod had soldiers, spies, and informants scattered throughout the territory. They only rested for a few hours. The midday heat made it impossible to travel. The desert sun was relentless, capable of killing the unsuspecting. But as soon as the evening shadow began to lengthen, Joseph gently woke Mary, and they resumed their journey. Day after day, they headed south. The landscape was becoming more and more desolate. Mountains of bare stone, sculpted by the erosion of millennia, rose like cathedrals of rock. Deep valleys meandered between them, their dry beds bearing witness to ancient torrents that had long since disappeared. From time to time, they would find an oasis, a miraculous green patch in the brown and gold of the desert, where a few date palms curled over a small waterhole. In these places, they were briefly joined by other caravans. Traders traveling between Gaza and Egypt, nomadic Bedouins with their herds of slender goats, fugitives like them seeking refuge in foreign lands. But Jose kept his distance, avoided conversations. I couldn't trust anyone. Any careless word could reach the wrong ears. On one of those nights, while camping near a spice caravan coming from Arabia, Mary took Joseph's hand. Her thin fingers intertwined with his, rough and calloused. "God is with us," she whispered, her eyes reflecting the stars above them. "I'm sorry." Joseph shook his hand in response. He felt it too. Despite the fear, the tiredness that penetrated to the bone, the uncertainty of tomorrow, there was an inexplicable peace. A deep certainty that invisible hands were guiding them, that invisible angels were marching beside them. Meanwhile, in Bethlehem, darkness fell literally and devastatingly. Herod, consumed by impatience and anger, had not been able to find the child. The wise men of the East, warned by God in a dream, had returned to their lands by another route without returning to the palace to report the exact location of the newborn king. The tyrant then made the most monstrous decision of his reign, already tainted by countless crimes. If he couldn't identify the boy, he would eliminate them all. He called his military commanders and gave the order that would make the mothers of Bethlehem weep for generations. Kill all the children from the age of 2 and up in Bethlehem and throughout that region. His soldiers, accustomed to following orders without question, marched towards Bethlehem. They were war-torn men with polished bronze armor that glistened in the sun, helmets with red feathers, sharp spears, and short Roman swords strapped to their belts. Their faces were masks of professional indifference. The sunrise in Bethlehem began like any other. Women woke up to fetch water from wells, men prepared to work in olive groves and vineyards, children ran through the narrow streets. The smell of freshly baked bread in clay ovens mixed with the aroma of myrrh and incense from merchants' shops. Then the sound of military boots echoed among the ancient stones. The doors began to be forced. Screams pierced the morning air. The massacre was swift and brutal. Soldiers entered homes, ignored the desperate pleas of mothers who threw themselves at their feet, snatched babies from the arms of helpless fathers. The screams of innocent children were mixed with the anguished cries of broken families. The blood of the innocent stained the stones of the streets that, a short time before, had witnessed the joy of the shepherds announcing the birth of the Savior. Thus was fulfilled the ancient prophecy of Jeremiah, spoken centuries earlier. A voice was heard in Ramah, mourning and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children and not wanting to be comforted because they are no more. Rachel, the matriarch of Israel, buried near Bethlehem, seemed to weep again through the mothers who lost their children. Mourning covered the small town like a heavy blanket. The silence that followed the soldiers' march was more deafening than the screams. It was the silence of absence, of the emptiness left by lives brutally interrupted. But the boy Herod was looking for was safe, hundreds of miles away. Joseph, Mary, and Jesus had finally reached the borders of Egypt, the land of the pharaohs, of the ancient pyramids, of the Nile River that gave life to the desert. It was a familiar land for the Jewish people. Their ancestors had been slaves there. Moses had been born on its shores, and it was from Egypt that God called his people. Out of Egypt I have called my son. Now, Egypt was no longer the land of slavery, but the land of refuge. The Son of God found protection in the same land that once imprisoned his forefathers. Divine providence wove paradoxes throughout history. They settled in a Jewish community in Alexandria, the large coastal city founded by Alexander the Great. It was a place of impressive diversity. Egyptians, Greeks, Romans, Jews, merchants from every known nation. The harbor was teeming with merchant ships. The market was overflowing with spices from India, textiles from Syria, gold from Nubia, wheat from the Nile Valley itself. Joseph found work as a carpenter. His skillful hands soon gained a reputation. He built doors, windows, simple furniture for adobe and stone houses. Mary cared for Jesus, watching him grow strong and healthy under the Egyptian sun. He sang to him the Psalms of David, taught him the first words in Hebrew, told him the stories of the patriarchs. But their hearts never left Israel. Each night, Joseph and Mary looked north to the stars shining over the promised land. Their prayers rose to heaven like incense, asking for the day when they could return. The months turned into more than a year. Jesus took his first steps in the streets of Alexandria. His first words were a mixture of Hebrew and the sounds of the Egyptian he heard all around. But there was something different about him, something Mary sensed in her eyes, a wisdom that transcended his tender age, a presence that soothed and comforted. Then, on a night like that first in Bethlehem, the angel of the Lord appeared again to Joseph in a dream. This time, the message was not one of escape, but of return. Get up, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who tried to kill the child are dead. Joseph awoke with a heart overflowing with joy mixed with relief. Herod the tyrant was dead. The news had already reached Egypt through the merchants. The king, consumed by terrible diseases that many consider divine judgment, had died in agony. His body was said to have rotted even before death, devoured by maggots, emanating an unbearable stench, a fitting end for one who had caused so much suffering. The return journey was lighter, though no less long. The weight of fear had been replaced by the hope of returning. Every step that led them north was a step home, toward the lands of their ancestors, toward the fulfillment of ancient promises. But as he approached Judea, Joseph received troubling news. Archelaus, one of Herod's sons, had inherited the throne of Judea, and they said he was just as cruel, if not more so, than his father. Fear squeezed Jose's heart again. Would they have escaped from one tyrant only to fall into the hands of another? That night, God spoke again. In a dream, Joseph was warned not to settle in Judea. He was to go north to Galilee, far from Archelaus' direct reach. So instead of returning to Bethlehem, they went to Nazareth, the small town in the hills of Galilee, where Joseph and Mary had met and begun their life together. It was an insignificant village, despised by many Jewish Jews. There was nothing special about Nazareth. No important temple, no glorious history, only simple white stone houses on the slopes, golden wheat fields in the valleys, olive trees on the terraces. But it was there that Jesus would grow up. In that humble village, the Son of God learned Joseph's carpenter's trade, helped Mary with daily chores, played with the other children on the cobblestone streets. And as an adult, he would hear the contempt in voices asking, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" But that was precisely the beauty of God's plan. From most unlikely place would come the most extraordinary Savior. From the despised city would emerge the one who would change the world forever. Thus another ancient prophecy was fulfilled. He shall be called a Nazarene. The flight to Egypt was more than just a journey by a refugee family. It was a powerful demonstration of how God moves the heavens and the earth to protect his eternal purposes. It was proof that neither the fury of kings, nor human cruelty, nor the dangers of the wilderness can thwart the plans of the Almighty. Joseph and Mary did not fully understand the importance of those difficult days. They did not know that they were carrying in their arms the one who would one day carry the cross. Little did they imagine that the child they protected from Herod's hatred would one day willingly give up his life to save mankind. They could not foresee that the small hands they held would be pierced by carnations for the love of a lost world. But they trusted, they obeyed, they walked by faith, not by sight. And in this journey of faith, God has revealed himself as he always does, as protector of the vulnerable, guardian of the just, provider of the needy. Every step in the desert was held by invisible hands. Every night under the stars was guarded by angelic hosts. Each sunrise was a testimony that God never abandons those who belong to him. This story, recorded more than 2,000 years ago, continues to resonate throughout the centuries. It reminds us that even when darkness seems to prevail, when tyrants seem all-powerful, when the road ahead seems impossible, God is at work. He sees, he knows, he acts. And just as he protected the baby Jesus in the flight into Egypt, he continues to protect his children today. Not necessarily by freeing us from all difficulties, but by walking with us through them, transforming deserts into places of encounter with the divine, even making the wrath of men contribute to the fulfillment of his eternal purposes. The story of the flight into Egypt is not just about a child who was saved. It's about the God who saves. It is not just a family that obeyed. It is about the God worthy of all obedience. It is not just a plan that was not thwarted. It's about the God whose plans never fail. And in the end, that child grew up, became man, lived a perfect life, died a substitutionary death on the cross, rose again on the third day, and today is seated at the right hand of the Father, interceding for all who trust in him. The boy who was a refugee became the refuge. Whoever was protected became a protector. The one who was saved became the Savior. This is the flight into Egypt, a story of divine protection, human obedience, and undying love. A story that teaches us that even in the most difficult journeys, in the darkest nights, in the driest deserts, God is present, God is at work, and God never fails. May this truth fill our hearts with faith, our souls with hope, and our lives with an unshakable trust in the one who yesterday, today, and forever is the same, the God who protects, provides, and fulfills all his promises.